What have we here? Complete Frankenstein contraption. For overly nerding out how these work. Here we have signal generator, because if I play it with a guitar, it'll change every time no matter how hard I try to play it just the same. This will generate a sine wave every time, all the time. This, an oscilloscope, cheapest one you can find on Amazon, eBay, whatever. Comes in a kit, it's fun, you solder shit together. I was going to make a video doing that, but that's going to be boring as hell, so I'll probably just edit something in right here at about 10,000 miles an hour. This is what you should never do to your guitar patch cables. I've completely pulled the insulation back so I can get these little nippers on so I can get something out of the oscilloscope. Likewise, I had to slice up a perfectly terrible unshielded wire to make the test contraption, so that comes out of the signal generator. Let's start with a completely rare boutique pedal that you've probably never seen before. And let's figure out what it does. Brief intermission. Oh god. Recording. Isn't that a lovely tone? Alright, so I turned off the amp because we don't want to hear a sine wave. Got signal generator, tone comes out of that, around a bunch of cables, I don't know which one's which. Up into the pedal, the output is going into the amp, all the junk in the background is my trash, and the power cable is going into this variable DC power supply, which is currently set to 9 volts, which is exactly the input they're supposed to take, so right now we're not even breaking any rules. That's nice. So, what happens when we turn on old school DS-1 Distortion? Clipped. That's what happens. Oh, you don't believe me, just if I show you an oscilloscope. There's that tone we've grown to love. And it turns pretty harsh because we're getting this hard clipping. Now, as I turn the amplitude of the input signal down, at full gain it's not going to do much. But if I turn the distortion all the way down and the amplitude of the input signal all the way down, we get a cleaned up sine wave again. Now we can hear the difference in what happens if we increase the amplitude of the input wave, aka you hit the guitar harder. So it's clipping one side a lot harder than the other. The top side gets rounded over and this bottom half really gets hammered. That's interesting. Okay, so that's how that one works. I don't know what else to say about that. Go to like Wampler if you want to know how that stuff works. Again, if we keep the amplitude low on the input and turn up the gain, it's going to have the same effect, except it's also going to increase the whole volume of the whole show because, yeah, it's the gain pedal. Knob, pedal, whatever. Now let's try DS2 mode. As we can see, the fully cleaned up mode isn't quite cleaned up. It's got this little extra hump in there. As we roll the gain up, this one goes much more towards a square wave, which I believe is a bit more like a fuzz pedal. So that's interesting, at least on a single tone. If we turn up the gain, or the volume. Interesting, it's an asymmetrical clipping pattern. The top half gets this really hammered side, and the bottom part of the wave still actually goes down a bit. Turn up the gain, and what's it going to do? It actually rounds out the top half more square. Ooh. And right about there, it starts doing something else. Okay, so with that there, let's see if we turn down the amplitude. Okay, we can make that disappear, so it must be like a cascade of distortion. and now we're getting that extra harmonic or something. Driving everyone crazy probably too. Now, I want to play around with something, because a lot of people say that, you know, right before the battery died in their pedal, it sounded amazing, and that's not entirely bullshit. It actually does change the sound. Now, amazing or not, you decide. I don't care. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave everything alone. We've got the gain up pretty high, amplitude going in about medium, so we're playing along at a regular volume, distorting away, but the battery's starting to die. So now we're down to 8 volts. Down to 6.5 or so. Obviously the whole gain is dropping because the power into the distortion pedal, which is effectively an amplifier, which at the end clamps the volume back down to the original signal roughly. So we can see the total gain is dropping, but also look at that. Whatever that harmonic thing was disappears at, what is this, well, 4 volts now, so we're really dead. And also the pedal engaged LED has no longer got enough voltage to light up, so the pedal says it's off, but clearly it's not. Well, that's also interesting. Now with not enough power to run the amplifiers in the buffer, the transistors, the clean signal is getting a little bit of clipping too. Which if I turn up the volume, you can hear it. It doesn't sound clean anymore. Clean, low voltage. It's starting to gain a different distortion. So indeed, you're going to start getting a different sound as the power drops down. Now you can see it's really actually square clipped pretty badly at 2 volts. I'm surprised it's still making sound at all, but it does not sound like the clean signal it's supposed to. Actually engaging it does almost nothing too. Now what I've done is I've turned the gain all the way down. So before, what we were seeing is, with full voltage, we got a clean signal. That's a lie. That's completely and utterly a lie. Whoa. Let's not cook it. 9 volts is enough. Okay, let's put the input quiet enough. Because that's an interesting thing about a DS2, is it's actually got enough gain with the distortion all the way down that you get a slightly broken up sound if you play it with it on, but very quiet. That's why a lot of early 90s alt rock, they use this DS2 at a very low setting so they can get that clean sound, but not too jazzy clean, a little bit of grit. So anyway, we're back at a quiet volume going in, the distortion pedal is on, gain all the way down. Let's drop the voltage and see what happens to that. I'll just leave it there. We can see it's getting that clipping characteristic back again, even though I haven't changed anything but the input voltage. And I did change it pretty drastically, that said. It's now at 3.7 as opposed to the 9 volts it's supposed to get. So I think we can safely say that, yes, it does change the sound. I have no clue if you like that or not, but it will add a slightly different breakup characteristic. I believe it's called transistor starving or something like that. I don't know. Again, go to Wampler. That guy knows everything. Okay. Oh, actually, DS1 cleans up better. Let's see if the DS1 pedal has a weird characteristic as we drop the voltage. So at 8 volts, it's starting to do a little bit of something. 7.5, not much. This is interesting. From about 4.5 volts upwards, it doesn't actually distort the signal, it just decreases the amplitude. But at some point below that, 4 seems to do it pretty well. 3.6, whatever. It starts to get that clipping. Wish I knew what I was going to say, but that probably means something. Go figure out what. I don't know. So anyway, we can see what the DS2 does to a clean signal. Let's get this back to 9 volts where it's happy. Close enough. Full on clipping. Fucking EDM now, right? Yeah, interesting. Much more fuzzy on DS2, which does kind of check out because all that fuzzy, like Smashing Pumpkins stuff was happening in the early 90s, and Boss didn't want to get left behind with their 80s DS1 traditional overdrive, so they gave it a turbo mode, which basically is a little bit of fuzz, from all I can tell. Okay, enough of that one. We're gonna figure out how to defuse the bomb I've created.